Up to Hey, welcome everybody to In the Hot Seat. For our repeat viewers, thanks for being there again. For those new, welcome. Every 2 weeks we are putting industry experts and our customers into the hot seats for a lively discussion, some debate, and maybe some discourse even, in order to humanize digital experiences or make you experience a humanized digital experience. With that, we are covering all aspects of the customer lifecycle and are up for discussions of any type, as well as discussing technologies throughout the phase of customer lifecycles, customer journeys. This episode is about whether AI can help students, families, counselors through the maze of college applications. And this is, a topic that is quite close to most of us. I currently have 2 girls at university, and this was a process getting there. So what was your experience, Kristy?
My experience was a disaster because while you have girls and they are typically on top of everything,
Oh,
I have
no.
boys.
My
So
mom is, though.
my kids were like waiting until the very last minute to see if they could even get in anywhere. But no, in all seriousness, it's really hard. It's hard as a parent to know where to go, where to turn, how to figure it out, how to keep track of all of the different deadlines. And then when you figure that out, what have you applied to? What haven't you applied to? What do you want to apply to? And then keep track of all of the responses. It's kind of crazy. And I am extremely happy that my younger son graduates this month.
Oh,
So we
lucky
are
you.
done.
Done, yeah. So I still got this experience of getting into college ahead of me one more time.
Good luck.
And and I really would be happy if there was some idea of to me, this all appears as a lottery. So
Yeah.
this totally intransparent, totally everybody seems to have their own criteria, and there's no apparent reason whatsoever. I'm quite sure there are reasons behind the scenes, which they obviously don't tell us. And it's costing a heck of time, it's a heck of effort, a heck of money to apply to universities, colleges that couldn't care less about the application of my kid.
Right. And not to
And
mention the stress that the kids go through.
yeah,
And I,
same
I
for
think we
them.
don't often think about, what we're actually putting our kids through when they're
Yeah.
applying to all of these different colleges.
They have the work ultimately, yeah. And they have the hopes and expectations. So this is, to me,
Yep.
quite something that needs to get changed, which leads us to today's topic. Well, we are in the midst of today's topic. Why do we bring this up? Because our guest JT, who we'll bring in a minute, has about 20 years of building, scaling, and leading technology ventures. He is a blend of entrepreneur, so he's a multi-offender when it comes to startups, a repeat offender. He's a product visionary, he's an operational leader, and he just doesn't launch them, he turns them into businesses. And he has co-founded and led a bunch of companies about AI, media, digital product innovation, and forged partnerships with, well, you name them. Yeah, Adobe, OpenAI, Amazon, companies one knows of. Yeah. He has a track record in succeeding. And, well, to make things short, his latest venture is about kids, helping kids, their parents, school counselors within the application process to colleges, which is something. Why wasn't that done before? Maybe JT can tell us this right now, but we'll find him on stage. And if he unmutes, then we probably
Then
Yeah,
we
you
can
can hear me too. Look at that. A technologist at heart right there.
technology. Welcome, JT. Welcome, JT. But why is it? I mean, I'm a German, right? So for me, university is, or application to university is a, let's say, fairly simple, straightforward process. Why the heck is it so complicated here?
Yeah, I wish I had the specific answer for that. I mean, the oldest institution in the country actually is a college, right? Harvard technically outkicks the coverage of our government as it stands today. But I think that, ultimately the path to how we got here is muddy and messy. But the sad part is that universally it's understood that it's just way more complicated than it should be.
Yeah.
And in the age of data, it feels like it should have gotten easier. And for some reason, it feels like it's gotten harder. So I think about that a lot.
Yeah, so I would agree with the my two oldest are 1 year, well, 18 months, 12 months, 14 months apart from each other. So they are basically in subsequent college years. And to me, it even appears that the application criteria, the acceptance criteria have changed in one single year. Why is that?
Well, it changes every year, and it changes by university, because the universities, for lack of a better term, have shareholders. It's either the private endowments or it's the states, and so they have to be competitive with one another. And so we've created this ecosystem where we're really driving the schools to get better, which ultimately is not a bad thing. But in doing so, like, all of that pressure gets released downward, right? It rolls downhill. So now you have kids and parents and guidance counselors and college counselors and aunts and uncles and grandparents and all these other people that have to take on, the breadth of what the colleges themselves are doing to expand their ability to succeed. And it's non-trivial. Like, it's a non-trivial ask of a 17 and 18-year-old who are woefully ill-equipped to handle these decisions, to make a decision that's going to change the rest of their life potentially.
Yeah. And I mean, this seems to be, again, German, right? So I'm here for 5 years, 5.5 years now. And the grapevine tells me that this is a problem that has been there since forever. And with that, it is something that could have been addressed since, well, equally long. And why does it take a JT White in 2025 to address it?
Yeah, where were you in 1987?
I was 2.
Well, from what I understand, you were probably writing code at that point. So.
No, I mean, I think that, like, it's an interesting question, Thomas, right? Because the truth is like, we've had the opportunity to do a lot of these things, but it's really about who in the ecosystem is going to win by doing it. And I think if you look at the history of how we got here, the students and the parents are almost the last ones on the food chain to actually get tooling that makes things easier, because you wind up with enormous companies that do great jobs, like CRMs and all of these connective tissues, which are really important to the ecosystem. But they're serving the university's purpose, because the university fundamentally has the money, right? And like, if you're trying to build a business, that's usually where you go after where you're going to get the most capital and the most scale. And so those folks, because the universities have to do well, I think for the most part, I think parents have just kind of been left in the dust for a lot of this stuff. I mean, the amount of people that I've met in the past year who have shown me the spreadsheets that they built for their kid about all the schools and all the SATs and ACTs and all the extracurriculars, like, it's just a massive undertaking to even decide if you should apply to a school, let alone if you're going to get in. So I think right now there's a convergence of technology and ease in the age of AI, where we can automate a lot of the rote tasks and do something interesting. And I'm hoping, obviously, that we're the ones that solve that. But ultimately, for the greater good, I just hope somebody solves it, because it's too much. Like, it's just too much.
It absolutely is. And, this show is usually on the topic of CX, right? Customer experience, or UX, user experience. And so I think here, this should all center around the student as the customer, the user, right? And, their parents as maybe, the tangent customer user. And I don't see any student centricity in the process in any way whatsoever. And so I think, I mean, that's the biggest problem I see with it. But what are the main problems that you see with it, and what are you looking to do about them?
Well, Kristy, I mean, you nailed it, right? I mean, like, as someone who's been building digital products for basically my entire career, like, UX is at the center of everything that I do. Like, if you're not user centric, you're not building good products.
Right.
And what's fascinating to me is, like, Gen Z in particular, and eventually Gen Alpha, like, I'm a fringe millennial, us as well. Like, we're digital natives to some extent. Gen Z is going to be borderline AI native, and Gen Alpha is. So the idea that when you go into some of the platforms that do exist, because it's not like people haven't built things, they have. But when you go to them, they're web-based and they're using, very sort of stale educational sort of institutional language. They're non-mobile friendly. Like, they're just not suited to the people that they're actually talking to. They're suited to the university's workflow.
Yeah.
And when I think about UX, like, I think about the workflow of what happens. Like, Gen Z's mobile first. Like, they just want to, it needs to be fast and colorful and simple and beautiful because they grew up with apps with beautiful UI, right? And, like, my joke is always, like, if you go into like a mobile banking app, they've gotten better, but, like, they feel bad. Like, they feel like people who built them didn't love it, right? And then you see, like, what Robinhood's done. It's colorful and it's and it's really easy to interact. And there's all these beautiful transition states. Those feel like small things. They're not. Like, and when I think about the college application experience, the Common App, which is a 501c3, they've done a good job of consolidation, but it's still just a PDF. Like,
Right.
It's still a really boring PDF. And, like, these kids are existing in 15, 30 second, 1 minute, 3 minute intervals in the rest of their life with their dopamine being spiked constantly. And then you give them this massive thing and it's like, oh, there's 4,000 schools in the country. Which one do you want to go to? Here's a CSV. It's like, that's not great. Like, that's not great.
Right. Right. That's tough. So how do you solve that? Because there are 4,000 schools in the country. How do you make that easier? How do you help them through that CSV?
Yeah, so it's actually all about the user experience and the user journey, right? I mean, the way that we're trying to make it work is that we have access to all this incredible data. How do we display the data in a meaningful way that's mobile first? How do we introduce AI agents in an intelligent way? Because that's the big thing right now. Everybody's AI first. Everybody's got an AI agent. Well, cool, but why, right? The why behind it is important. And I think, one of my engineers that I love says that there's no engineering in prompt engineering. And I think that's probably a pretty fair assessment. So the idea is, if you have a really specific and dedicated use case and you have data around it, and you can surface that data in a meaningful way in an application that is designed for the way they look at applications, and then introduce agents that are hyper-focused on fixing the problem at hand, they naturally know how to do that. But also, there's a lot of data to sift through. So, like, how do you figure signal versus noise? And how do you make sure that it's really clear in the UX what is signal and what is noise, right? And the easy answer is don't show the noise, right? So, like, we'll make more and more data available to people. If you're a wonk and you want to get in the weeds, have at it, Hoss. Like, you can download the whole thing if you want. But more likely, at least most of all the studies that I've done and all the people that I've talked to in the industry, when you're first looking as a sophomore or junior, by the way, which is crazy,
right?
But when you're first looking as a sophomore or junior, what you need is easy access to top line information to start making data-driven decisions, as opposed to this, like, weird, vague, opinionated world. And it's also important for parents and guidance counselors because, everybody remembers it's like the Spanish Inquisition when you're a kid. Where are you going to school? What are you going to go to? What do you want to do? It's like, I don't know. Like, I just had a bagel bite. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm 16. Like, it's a lot. So if we can consolidate all that information in a way that they're comfortable with and give them an interface that they can interact with, and then actually have that kind of produce like a report that says, look, this is the stuff that I'm interested in. Go talk to people. Because, like, as an AI person, like, I'm a huge proponent of human in the loop. And all of this is about, like, how do you get the hard part out of the way so that you can spend the meaningful time doing the stuff that matters? And the stuff that matters is your dinner table. The stuff that matters is your guidance counselor. The stuff that matters is your favorite teacher. Like, Mr. Smith was my English teacher, and I was like, no idea what I want to do when I grow up. And I was like, what do I do? Like, those conversations are the ones that actually are material, but they should be driven by data. And I'll tell you, at least when I was 17, there was you handed me an Excel file and said, find the school that fits the match for you, I'd be like, okay, no, like,
Right.
I think I'll go play basketball. Like, I'll talk to you later. Like,
And so in your agentic solution to this, are you using the natural language processing then to
we are.
kind of gather interest and areas where somebody might want to, and then serving up the data? Like, tell me how this works.
Yeah, so the way it works is that there's lots of really great databases, because it's mandated by law that all of the universities in the country have to put out certain statistics about their school so that you can find it. But again, it exists in this like amorphous data set that nobody would ever read. So what we've done is we put all that together so you can see like what the economic breakdown of the school is, what it actually costs, what's the demographics of the school, is it urban or like urban, suburban, or rural? We're even looking at pulling in APIs to be able to say like, look, what's around? Like, do you really love a Chipotle? Like, is that important to you? Like, what's your vibe? Like, what's your actual vibe? Because I went to school for evolutionary psychology, and a big reason for why I'm building this is because, you know, my mother, I watched her when I was growing up. She was a social worker for the most part, and she started a 501c3 about underprivileged kids to get into schools. And I watched her create mentorship and believe in kids, specifically first generation. And what I learned is that there's just access to this stuff is just really, really hard for most people. But what I also then learned in the process of trying to build all this is that kids just want to talk to, 86% of kids are using ChatGPT in their daily life. Okay. Like, it's happening. So you can either lean into a product or you can lean against it. And for the kids, I think you should lean into it, because if they're a little more comfortable saying that they actually want a really small school, even though their parents went to Clemson, they should be able to do that. And they're going to be a lot more comfortable doing that in an interface that they're accustomed to and used to. So what we do is we surface all the information in a really visually, hopefully appealing way, so it's really simple to read. And then we give the agent, excuse me, we give them access to the agent. But the important part is it's not a free-form agent. The agent, like, we are prepending all of the prompts behind the scenes to make sure that it stays focused. So this isn't just like ChatGPT where all of a sudden you can just run off and be like, wow, I didn't know pistol shrimp existed. Like, that's not the intention, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, content is king, but curation is queen. Like, we're curating the experience very specifically for the problem we're trying to solve. Right. So they can use NLP, but then they're using it in a very focused way. So if they ask questions that are totally out of bounds or questions that it shouldn't answer or doesn't know the answer to, we're training it to do so.
Interesting.
So now looking at different colleges and, well, different preferences of the kids. I mean, the usual advisors have a stretch university, or a stretch college, have some right. where you are, well, very likely to get in. So the I call it mainstream, and some safeguards.
Yep.
And all of them do their, well, they ingest the grades of the kids, the GPA, and then they are doing some magic behind the scene, and all of a sudden the GPA is another GPA. So and that's probably changing every year as well.
Yep.
How do you deal with that? So that at the end there is, well, I called it recommendation when we initially met. There is a list with likelihoods of getting accepted at all, into schools that fit me, including my vibe.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with that? And how do you get that data? How do you convince those universities, those colleges, to give it to you year after year, probably?
Yeah, well, so there's two very distinct things I want to answer, and we'll start backwards. So the colleges, one of the things that I've learned in the process is there's a process called the recalculation, right? So for international students, we're much like the metric system, right? The US, we just do our own thing. Like, we're special, so we do what we want. So we're the only ones on a 4.0 scale. Everybody else on the planet uses something else. There's like 6 or 7 others that are kind of like standard. So if you're an international student coming to the US, they have to recalculate your grades to get you to a 4.0 scale. What I learned in talking to colleges, because I'm a big proponent of doing the work in advance, product market fit before you build. So we went out and did a bunch of surveys. And in surveying, what I learned is that most of the schools in this country are recalculating, or they want to, or they are recalculating US grades as well. And the reason they do that is because they're thinking of this in cohorts, right? What does our school need? Are we low on certain academic profiles? Are we low on certain demographic profiles? Do we need more engineers this year? Are we looking for more design students? Are we too heavy in liberal arts? Also, every college, not every college, but most colleges are colleges within colleges. right? So there's the engineering school and the art school and the liberal arts school. So the kids are different. GA, general admissions, a different problem set. So we've actually built another AI component for those schools where we can manually do not manually, we automatically do the recalc for them using an AI agent on their side that will automatically spin up and under 3 days can do hundreds of thousands of applications at scale so that they can do all the tweaking. Because today I also learned that was a manual process, which again, as a technologist, I was just like, why though? Like, why? That said, I want to go back to the first point you made, which is we actually don't need the schools because they do have to publish a fair amount. And there's a lot of inferential data that we can make. Okay. And I will tell you, I'm going to be a millennial for a minute in my language, but the idea of stretch potential, safe schools, yuck. Just yuck. What a bad, first of all, just the nuance of the language of that is so unhealthy. It's already so unhealthy. Yeah. So Thomas, to your point, there's this world in which is a big swing for us, but it's something I'm very much thinking about, is we build profiles. So when we onboard a student, we ask a bunch of questions, and it's not a lot, and they're just easy questions, right? What do you like? Because again, my psychology background and seeing what my mom did when I was a kid, it's your GPA doesn't go to the school. You do. As a human person that has things that you care about and that you like and that you're bad at. Some kids want a chill atmosphere. That's okay. But if you send them to Harvard, woof, that's going to be a hard time, even if technically you could get in. So this idea of stretch and safe is the wrong mechanism. The right mechanism is fit. Right. So there's the human fit, which we actually create a profile and show you, is the college a good fit for you? But there's also then the will you get in? And the idea is to red light, green light your way into a green. And so we're in a position, ideally, where we'll be able to start saying hey, you might not know about, whatever Wofford, but it kind of checks all your boxes and you should really consider it. Yeah. And we're not going to tell them to go there, but surfacing that data, again, 4,000 schools is too many schools. Yeah. So if we can just say there actually are a bunch that are a perfect fit for you that we think you would get into or you're close to, just having that crib sheet, I think, is a huge step up.
Yeah.
I mean, there is one more aspect why I wholeheartedly agree to the yuck statement that you just made. Because what does it mean? It instantly put the kids, the students, the future of this country on the back foot. It makes them beggars, basically. And what other can one say than this is wrong? So, there's an additional dimension to what you said as well. So my oldest, he was in one of the probably top 10 ranked high schools in this country, where it's basically look Eastlake High. So this is Sammamish-based school. This is one of the top ranked public schools. Now, pretty much everybody who wants their kids to get into a higher education goes there, given that they can afford the real estate as a side remark, because there's a correlation between that as well.
Right.
So, and as this is IT, guess what? There are many people of cultures who put very high emphasis on education. Consequence is, out of her class, whopping 40% of kids had a GPA of 4.0.
Yeah.
Imagine that, yeah. Now, from what I hear is that a bunch of quote unquote good universities have quotas per school, per high school. Let's take, Clemson, you mentioned Clemson, or MIT, too, because everybody does STEM these days as well. Everybody, I'm using words that I don't want to use myself, actually. They say we don't take more than 5, just to put a number, of any school. Now you have a GPA of only 3.95, and all of the sudden you're part of the rest. So how can that be dealt with better in the school selection process with a tool like GrAIded?
Yeah, well, so I think you when I was not on screen yet, you mentioned transparency. And I think one of the biggest things that is missing in this is that the entire system is so vague to everyone involved, right? Because like you mentioned that like one of the things that we were trying to figure out how to deal with is legacy, right? Like nobody really publishes their legacy stats for a bunch of reasons. And that's okay. Like, you know, again, you're private institutions, you can do what you want. But that's a consideration set. Knowing that legacies are going to have a leg up, which we all kind of like, I think, just understand, but it's not quantified anywhere. And so the transparency of like, hey, we only take 5 kids from, I'm a New York kid. So like, you know, one of the big schools there is Dalton, right? Those are all Ivies. Like those kids are like, if you wind up at Columbia, it's like sad. And that's crazy, right? But there are these feeder programs and those do exist. And ultimately, one of the things that makes me sad is actually the inverse of what you're saying. I don't care that they're only taking 5 kids from those schools. I care that they want to take 5 kids from that school and they're not looking broader, because there's a bunch of other places with really talented kids who also probably should get in, and they're at schools or high schools they've never heard of. And so the way to break it down is to actually start showing people what the math is, right? Having speaking of words we don't like, dual-sided marketplace, but like having like a more open marketplace where you can actually see what the things, like what levers are being pulled to make these decisions. Yeah. And if you want to take 5 kids or 10 kids from a school every year, that's your right to do so. But at what cost to what other kids in that school, and at what cost to other kids in the country? Because again, I think, Thomas, you said a really important part here, which is one of my driving ethoses, is this is about we're trying to make our kids what? Good citizens, and to increase the value of the organization of America, or we're trying to like put them into bubbles and say we need this because it's good for us. Well, that's not how good economies are built, right? And right now we're at a really interesting place in time because the workforce is about to change, and it's going to change dramatically and quick. And so I think now is the moment where we need to be looking at exactly what you're talking about, which is like, what are the constraints that you're putting on? Are they good constraints? Can we actually back up with data what happened because of those constraints? And then can we talk about it openly, right? Because there's a lot of private schools in this country who are struggling right now, and they're struggling to get good kids. And it's partially because a lot of the public schools have gotten better. And, you know, like I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I'm far away from having to worry about this. But I'm already looking at in-state tuition going, oh boy, I hope they go here. Because it's material, like it's a material difference.
It's one of the reasons I'm in Charleston now.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it also just continues to drive that wedge in between I don't know, I hate these terms, but the haves and the have-nots, right? Yeah. Like if you're a disadvantaged student at a school that somebody's never heard of, and Sally is, you know, the daughter of the guy who graduated there with a 4.0, these students may be this way, but they're going to take Sally because they don't know who this person is. And it just continues to drive that disparity and that wedge between, you know, the underprivileged kids being held down and the privileged kids with legacy continuing to thrive.
Well, and it's actually built into our thesis as a company is that we like in all of our financial modeling, like the way that we're doing this is for every one student that pays, we're going to give it to one who can't.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it's important. And again, like the intention of the education system, supposedly, right, is to raise the country, right? In order to do so, that means all of the country, not some, right? And education, like, you know, Thomas, you have a very different opinion of this as a European, right? But like education should like in the developed world, like education should be not a consideration, it should be a guarantee. And so now it's about, well, how do we make that guarantee more guaranteed, and how do we open the doors? Because the other thing is like, look, I've been very lucky in my career to speak at all kinds of places, at the big one, like, you know, all the Ivies, and also at like community colleges. I have met some of the smartest, kindest, most incredible people who are teaching at community colleges. And if they could get their hands on kids that want to take the next step, those kids could wind up at Harvard, or they could wind up at Carnegie Mellon, or wherever, right? Or they could crush a 2-year program and go start a company, because that's what happens a lot now. And we're about to open an age where that's going to be more and more possible because of the advancements in AI. So I just think it's like we're just at this tipping point where the data exists. It's not really designed or developed for the people that it really actually affects the most at the start of their journey. why not? Like, somebody's got to fix this. And honestly, like, all kidding aside, if it's not us, I honestly don't care. Like, I hope it's us, but somebody's got to make this problem. Like, someone's got to fix this problem because it's not working. Like, it's just not working. Like, everybody I talk to, every parent, every student, every transfer, every adult who goes back to college, I'm like, hey, did you have a good time trying to get into college? And they laugh. Like, they're like, no, it was terrible. I'm like, okay, why? Why are we doing it this way? Like, how come we can't solve this?
Yeah. So now we repeatedly came across intransparency as a key term. What are good mechanisms to get away with it? If the universities, the colleges need to publish a lot of information actually, not automatically, but by law, basically, which is one of the very good things of this country, is that a lot of information that is often kept private is public domain.
Yep.
So how can services like GrAIded or different ones contribute to that?
Well, I think it goes back to
the transparency. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, just because you publish data doesn't mean it's easy to access, right? So, like, fundamentally, you can go to every school that you think you know about and go on their website and learn all this information. That's a labor. Like, that's going to take time.
Yeah.
Also, how do you synthesize that data? Because a lot of the data that comes out, even some of the sources that we're using, which I won't mention anybody in particular, but even the way they structure their data as a technologist, like, me and my CTO are looking at their structure going like, this taxonomy is horrible. Like, this is not easy to get access to. So making data free is one thing. Making data understandable is a different problem, right? And so a lot of it has to do with synthesizing multiple data sets, building a single taxonomy that's actually human readable, and then surfacing it to people in a way that they can actually understand it without having to go into a SQL table. Because, like, a lot of the stuff that gets put out, like, if you go download this stuff, it's like, I mean, even with ChatGPT now, or whatever, LLM you want to use, good luck. Like, there's 4 reference databases, there's 4 different mechanisms. They all have codes that you have to, like, it's not designed to be helpful. It's designed to be available, right? And there's a huge difference between available and helpful. And so it's about turning what's available into what's helpful, and also getting rid of, again, signal versus noise. Like, one of the spreadsheets we got that we downloaded, I think it was over 800 rows or columns rather, of just acronyms. And, like, why? Like, why? Like, that, like, when a student comes here, that's not what they're looking for. That's not what they need. Like, there's probably 10 to 15 fields that are, like, really material. And then there's a lot of other data that if you want to get really wonky about it, you should be able to. But, like, how come those 2 things are in the same spreadsheet and they're not very clearly called out? Like, the obfuscation of this data is, and I don't know if it's intentional as much as just evolutionary, right? More data sets get put on more data sets, and then, like, now, Bill, who wrote the original thing, is the only one who has the key to actually know what the tables mean anymore. Like, I get that. I've been in technology my whole life. I understand how that happens, right? Like, there's a lot of evolutionary products that are just bloated now because they couldn't help themselves. But I'm not finding anybody doing the work for the people that I care the most about, which are students. Right. And so that's what we want to do. You just have to synthesize all of it and get rid of a lot of it, and then surface what matters. And then hopefully that leads to more successful, more intelligent conversations with people, because ultimately this is a people problem.
Do you have some examples about these more relevant data points and the less relevant, and the various taxonomies that you use as an input, basically, to consolidate them, basically? I guess that's what you are doing.
Yeah. So we're, like, right now we're tied into 4 different data sets to try to produce what is fundamentally, like, maybe 20 fields, right? Things that matter. School size matters, right? Location matters, right? Economic of the school, not just, like, what does it cost, but, like, what is the economic makeup of a student, right? Because, like, there's, again, like, I'm big into psychology stuff. Like, if you are a have-not and you go to school with a bunch of haves, it is a challenge. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but you should do it with your eyes wide open as to what that's going to look like for you.
Educated decision. Yeah.
It's a huge difference, right? If you just all of a sudden roll in and kids are driving around in G550s, like, that's confusing if you took the bus. Like it's a huge thing. So these like softer things, like those are really important. I also think just making like, we're looking at scholarships. Like how do we make scholarships more like easily understood? Because schools have them. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
But what schools have which ones? Which ones can you apply to? What are the rules around those things? Like these are the things that families need to know. Right. And then obviously like the obvious stuff is ACT averages, like what's the average as far as like your GPA, like are they, heavily sports induced versus not sports induced schools? Because it does make a difference. Are they an art school? Are they more, RISD? Like, if you're an art school, like everyone knows RISD's an art school, but there's other schools that have beautiful art programs you might not know actually really excel in art. Well, we can surface that information because that information is available. So if we can start to give you an idea of what the school really is like to live at, because that's what you're doing. You're marrying the school.
Right.
So this is a bad analogy, but like, you should date a little bit, right? At least get their Tinder profile. Like, who are they? Like get a concept of who they are. So that's what we're focused on. We're focused on the things that we think are going to have the largest impact and also the things that we've been told to. Because again, as a product person, like always survey. So we've talked to college counselors. I've talked to hundreds of students. We've talked to guidance counselors. Everyone that knows me in my personal life is so tired of me talking about their college experience. Because I'm like, what was it like when you were in school? What about your kids? Like, I can't help myself. But what we're learning is that it really is a pretty synthesized set. So we're kind of down like 20-ish fields that really seem to move the needle for decision making. And then the rest we can make available if they want to ask questions about what the average GPA output is. Things that I think are interesting that we can't necessarily get access to yet, but we want to, are things like average salary out of school, per program, right? What should you go to school for? Like, should you be a liberal arts major until you decide to be something? I mean, my personal journey is I went to school for evolutionary psychology because I thought it was fun. And then my professor, God bless him, sat me down one day. He's like, are you going to be a professor of this? And I was like, no. And he's like, are you going to be a scientist? I was like, probably not. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I thought I'm having a good time. He's like, great. What do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm 20, dude. I thought this was a good idea. Like those kind of conversations can happen way earlier if you have data available. And again, my biggest thing, especially in the modern age, is like real data, not opinions, right? Like how do we surface actual data so that people can have data-driven discussions with their children, with their counselors, with whomever? So that's my core focus right now.
So is there ever a time in this app where you would advise a kid that, maybe college isn't right for you? Maybe you should look at a trade school.
So yes, I'm actually I'm very bullish on the trades right now, just because there are certain, like one of my biggest, like I think Thomas has heard me say this, but like AI is not going to paint your house.
Right.
Like there are limitations.
Or fix your toilet. Yeah.
Not right. Plumbing, HVAC, electricians. So we are looking into data sets. To be honest, I have not found one with the efficacy that's high enough for me to be super comfortable with, but we are looking at like comparison data, which is like, what is the average starting salary of a third year? Because you still electricians go to school. It's just called an apprenticeship.
Right.
So when you do your 3 years, like what do you make after that? And what have you lost? Well, you don't really spend much of anything other than union dues if it's union. So then on the other side of it, it's like, well, or you could be an engineer and you could go to a really good school and you could be anywhere between $100,000 and $400,000 in debt. And this is what you would make. So just again, we're not a recommendation engine. Like you have to make decisions that's right for you and your family. But again, surfacing that information and going, I mean, have you considered this? Like, because, I've seen, like, I've done some electrician work. It's engineering.
Right.
Like,
when do you go to school for to be an electrician, and when do you go to school for electrical engineering?
Exactly.
Help me make that decision.
Yeah. And so being able to surface that data, like we are looking for, I'm a big data efficacy person, obviously. So we're looking for data sets that are meaningful enough that I can draft off of to at least be able to show that information with a high level of confidence. But yeah, it's very much on my mind because I think that there's a lot of paths to a successful life. And I think it's important to try to show those things to people. So even if they make the decision, like whatever decision you make is fine. But again, data, like there's so much cool data out there. And I think most people either don't know how to access it or when they do, don't know what to do with it because it's overwhelming.
And you said something earlier that was interesting. You were talking about, well, what is the goal of a college? Like what is it that they want to do? And it, to improve society or improve America or whatever you said, which is a lot different from the goal of a parent. which is I want to raise good human beings who are happy.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can give me a tool that's going to help my good human being, hopefully, decide what is going to make him happy, I would pay a fortune for something like that, because I've still got two in the house, even though one's going to graduate and one is out of school, that they really don't know what it is they want to do.
And listen, I'm 40 years old. I'm still not sure. Like, I'm doing this now because it's happening, but like, I don't know if this is what I want to be doing. Like, maybe I'd like to be teaching college. I don't know. I have no idea. Like, maybe I'd be a really good fisherman. I'm not sure. But, like, what I do know though is that like the soft part, like the human experience is exhausting and hard, right? So the more that we can quantify who you are as a person, so that if at the very least, if you could at least be in a position to make better decisions because you're not so stressed out and you're in an environment that suits who you are, then the journey is the journey is the end game, right? Like that's the whole point. And also, Kristy, to your point, the one thing I do want to say is like, I don't want to make it expensive because it's important. Like this is such an important, there's 15 million kids every year that are going into school. 15 million. That is a non-trivial number. Right. So like, yeah, could we but if we sell it to $1,000 or $2,000 for every kid, like, yeah, that'd be great for me as a business person. And you know what I just did? I just wedged the gap again.
Yes. Yeah.
Because now nobody can get it. Right.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely a capital turns business, not a net operating profit business for me. I want this in the hands, or something like this in the hands of everybody, because we will all benefit from something like this existing in some capacity. And like specifically where we are in the world right now, I think we need this. Like, I think we need to be having these conversations. Again, like my thing is the dinner table. The conversation that will draft off of this from the dinner table is more important than where you go to school.
Yes.
It just is.
Absolutely.
And to your point that you're 40 and don't know yet what you will be about soon. Yeah. I think that's quite normal. Looking at me, I'm a bit older than 40. I won't divulge that, and I'm actually on my at least third career right now.
Yeah.
So that happens. That will happen. And the interesting question about that is how much a degree matters at all.
Well, I will tell you, like, one of the funniest things about me starting this company, I don't have a 4-year degree. Like, I went to school for 3.5 years and had a really cool advisor who was like, hey, buddy, you should switch to the business school, I think. And I was like, okay. But then I had a job and I was doing other stuff. And like, I'm like 12 credits shy of a 4-year degree.
My son is too, my older son.
And look, I mean, for all intent and purpose, like, I'm so grateful for the time that I had in school. I learned a lot. I actually, especially since we talked about UX in the beginning, like the psychology part of my brain has been very helpful as a product person, because I'm constantly thinking about the why. Right? Like, why do we do the things that we do? Why does it matter? It's super, super helpful. Yeah. But also, like, I was very lucky. Like, I was lucky that I had the people around me that made it work, and I've been able to make it work. And I'm still a proponent of I wish I had a more traditional 4-year college experience, because I have lots of friends that did. Unfortunately, that wasn't in the cards for me. Right? Like, I had a bunch of stuff happen in my personal life that just wasn't going to make it a thing. And I'm grateful for the time I had. But again, for me, it's not that I want you to go to school. It's that I want you to have access to, should you go to school, and if you do, where and for what. Now, the for what is a you and your family problem, but there's a lot of data that can inform it. And right now, I don't see anybody doing anything cool with that data. I just don't.
Right. Unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes, because the other part of this conversation I wanted to get into was the school side of all of this, and how GrAIded maybe at some point addresses that. And I know, I think we need a part 2 with JT, because I also wanted to ask some questions about the book that I know you said you weren't going to plug the book today, but I really had some good questions that I don't think we're going to get to. So, Thomas, do you have anything you want to ask to just kind of bring this home and wrap it up?
No. I'm in awe.
I know, I am too. God, where were you when my son graduated in 2020 and had to decide what he was going to do with the next 4 years of his life? Right? Like,
well, I always ask kids what they want to do, because I'm looking for advice. I'm like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, maybe they'll come up with something cool, and I'll go do that. I don't know.
Let's put it like that. So my youngest right now is a sophomore at high school. So I surely hope you GrAIded or something similar is around in, well, 1 year, because that's when the thing starts again.
I hope for your sake it is too. And I hope it's on.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have today. JT, you survived the hot seat the first time around, but we may ask you to do this again.
I'll come back. I'll happily come back. This is great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really
That
really
was
fun.
big fun.
Absolutely. And to anybody who's watching, if you think you have what it takes to be in the hot seat, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. That is your In the Hot Seat episode for today. Thanks so much for being with us this week. I'm Kristy Tupper.
And I'm Thomas Liebernight. Tune in next time for different phrases, different topics, different perspectives, as we put somebody else into the hot seat or they us.